These men looking at me all shook. Talk about it, but they never gon' do it. I came out and played by the book. Yeah, I make the bands, yeah, I got them all shook. Oh, all I need to say, no, don't hit my line. Tryna play the big boy game. Don't say much, but I know your face. You sad, yeah, you sad.
Man, TK, it's so great to have you. I know the last time we spoke, it was a brief conversation. But you're doing some cool ass shit out there in Australia. You know, like the first time I heard of your own light, the song really shook me. Like that song banged. You know, like I had to like play it again and again and again, and we're still playing it now. Like for those who are not familiar, who's TK?
Well, I'm from Zimbabwe. I was born in Zimbabwe and I moved to Australia. My family moved to Australia when I was 5 years old. I've lived in about 5 different cities, but when I was younger, I played tennis. So I was meant to play tennis as that was meant to be my career. But I felt like when I was finishing high school, I didn't think it wasn't the path for me. So that's when I started writing music when I was 15. And I love music. I love a lot of different types of music, like pop music, rap, a lot of like alternative soul music. So I feel like who I am is kind of just like a mixture of like how I've grown up, because I feel like I exist in so many different ways. Like I have a lot of different friends, and that really influences my music. So I'm a rapper, I'm a singer, I make kind of music in between there. You know, it can be dance, it can be like hard rap, it can be fun. I think it's always high energy, at least. Like it's always about keeping the tempo up, and more so I am expressing myself in the way that I want. Yeah.
And how has that much traveling affected the way your music sounds, the way you write? Because I mean, we're talking about different cultural influences, different time zones, just how you naturally operate in these different spaces.
Yeah, I think I definitely have picked up small influences from everywhere I've lived. Like I think the fact that I live in Australia, Australians really like pop music. So it's very Western, it's easy to digest, and I feel like the best music that I make is always like a mixture of that, like off kilter, but it's still easy to digest, because I feel like the music I've grown up listening to, it just catches your ear, and that's what radio music is. And I think that's why my music is so like radio friendly, because that's when I want to make something I want to listen to a lot of times. I don't want it to be too hard to digest. I think coming from Africa, I just like fast tempos, and I like to have, you know, different rhythms, and that's what I grew up listening to. My parents, they were always playing, they love music, so I feel like I've always been around people that want to discover something new and hear something new and create something that doesn't necessarily exist for the masses. Like a small group of people like it, or you know, it's just like a acquired taste. So yeah, I think it's more so just like probably hearing a lot of different influences, and then also just thinking about how I want to exist. I think that's when you've lived in so many different places, you kind of have a different outlook, and it's not so much about how can I fit in, it's like how can I stand out and do something different, because I've seen so much and I don't feel like I fit in anywhere. So I have to kind of build my own community, because I don't know where my home is, if that makes sense. Yeah.
You know, I find Australia like the weird spot, because for the longest of time it's been known as a country full of white people, you know, from Melbourne, like there's Sydney. I don't know if those are the cities out in Australia, but I think it is, right? Melbourne.
Yeah.
It's predominantly a white space. So to see people of color actually come in on surface and just, you know, seeing artists going to Australia. I think Lamise went to Australia last year to tour. She's a big South African DJ. Nasty C also went to Australia for a few shows that side. Like what's the current vibe in Australia when it comes to hip hop or R&B or just music at large?
Yeah, I think, you know, in the world, it's so cool to be different right now. And I feel like that's starting to show a lot in Australia. Like when I first started releasing music, I was definitely the only African girl rapping that like the industry he knew about, and there was probably a couple of other artists, but they did pop music. Like it was just straight, they were just singing over like dance music, and I think I was a part of that small shift that started happening in the beginning kind of thing. Right now it's even more exciting because I feel like record labels, they're just looking at African artists because that's the culture. Like we are the culture, we tell the story the best, and I feel like the rest of the world is looking at that. Like they're looking at African people, American people, but it's just like we're all black, so, and that's kind of like, it just feels more unique. And I think Australians are starting to catch up that, you know, if we want to have a shot everywhere else, they have to like look at people who tell the story more uniquely. And I think I don't feel alone anymore because I know I have a lot of peers now that I can go to, and we also make similar music. I think if you're from Australia and you rap, just because you have that almost that Western influence, you're gonna make alternative rap music. Like a lot of rappers here are just alternative, like they rap over house beats. It's just not straight American music. Like I think Americans don't want to hear a story from an Australian kind of thing, so it's like we have to find a way to tell our own story in a unique way. So there's a lot of like alternative rappers coming up, and it's really exciting, honestly.
That is cool.
But what is your take? Sorry?
No.
Oh, but what is your take on Black women in pop? Because I've never thought that it's a friendly space for Black women. Rihanna being an example that we can call a hybrid, because she's able to cross over so much. Yeah. And then more recently, you have Normani entering a space, but not being really received in a positive light. There was a lot of pushback when Normani said, I'm a pop artist, I'm making pop music, and this is what I'm giving. Yeah. So as a Black woman outside of the Australian space in pop music and identifying as a pop artist, would you say that we have solidified ourselves in the space, or do you think that there is a lot of work to do? And if so, what needs to change for the industry and its audience to be able to say, okay, she's Black. Not only that, she's a melanated Black woman who makes pop music.
I feel like it is a tough place to exist. I mean, when I first started releasing pop music, I definitely didn't feel embraced. I feel like right now what pop music is actually like Black females rapping. So, you know, you have Megan Thee Stallion, Cardi B, there's Flo Milli. I feel like that, you know, for me, pop is like popular music, but if you're doing like, if you're singing and you're dancing and you're doing like basically the white version of pop, you almost have to solidify yourself in like with amongst your own people. And I think that's why Rihanna was so embraced, because she was making Black music and then she was able to branch over into the Western and be accepted by Black people. And I don't think in a way Normani did that, because she's always existed in like the Western sense, but she hasn't fully made like an R&B album. So I think the way for, I think, artists to solidify themselves in that way is like they have to like appease their people in a way, or be respected by that side, and then cross over. Like that's kind of like the industry way of how people do it. Like Beyonce did the exact same thing. I honestly don't know how like the industry can shape like the way people view Black women in that sense. I think there's just like some sort of certain formula that you have to follow, and you know, everyone kind of works to please the people first, because the people decide who is growing and who is like championed in that way. So I think honestly to answer your question, it's tough, but I think the reason why people like Rihanna are more welcomed is because she started off making like Black music before she went Western, if you know what I mean. Her first album was like Island. She was rapping, but she was singing over. But
she's an islander though.
Yeah, no, but it's a tough question to ask, but I think it's just like the journey that they both took was different. That's I think that's the difference between them two. It's tough because it's not fair on Normani, and she's kind of just doing what she wants to do, but I wouldn't know how to fix that kind of thing, if you know what I mean. It's like to me, it just seems like some people are embraced and some people aren't, because Tinashe kind of had the same experience. And it was just like, I don't know how to answer this in a positive way. Sorry.
But bringing it to your experience, playing in a field where it's predominantly white people, and I might say that as an outsider, because I find you as the closest link we might have to Australia. You're also in the forefront of a movement and sound that is possibly new to the urban space in Australia. How have you been able to navigate the room? Knowing that you're a beautiful melanated woman, how have you been able to navigate the room to be at the point that you are right now?
For me, in the beginning, I was mainly working as like a top liner songwriter. So basically, producers will give you an instrumental or songs that they want to release eventually as their own singles, and I was just pitching. And I think what happened in my career was I was building up my profile in the electronic sense, in the electronic world, and then when I released my debut album, I just felt like I was on a path that I wasn't happy with, and that was basically the path was that I was making music that felt almost, it was too Western. Like, it was just dance music, it was pop music. It didn't feel like an honest story of myself. So I decided to take a break. And I think because people had this perceived idea that I was cool, but the perception hadn't met my music, if that makes, like, what I was doing wasn't matching my perception. And I was starting to realize that when I was noticing, Tinashe, SZA, a lot of those other artists, I was like, oh wait, I really like this music and I feel like I resonate with this. I would love to, work on soulful music and like express myself in that way. So I spent 2 years just meeting a lot of producers and just working on myself as a person as well. And I think when I released my first EP and Awake and then Shook, that started to align, like my personal development started to align with how people thought I should be, if that makes sense. And I think that's like now, before I wasn't really accepted by African people in Australia. Like, I was just kind of a Western girl. Yeah. So this whole shift in my personality and my career has now made me someone who is accepted by African people, if that makes sense.
So even
that's why I'm saying
they were not welcoming to you?
No, because they just thought I was a white girl. That's also why I'm saying with the whole Normani and Rihanna thing, it's like if you go too far west, your own people kind of won't really see you, if that makes sense, because they think they don't see you. So I've had to work on myself and then make the music that I felt was right. And then like even my friends were like, oh, this is actually cool, like this makes sense, like I can tell where you're from, you're actually more in touch with your blackness. And then even Australian people like, okay, cool, we can see her identity. And that's kind of what I've been working on, just trying to make sure my identity really shows. So yeah, it's just about solidifying who you are, even if that person is a artist who makes alternative music. Sometimes I'm rapping, sometimes I'm singing. It's like people just know they can see me now better than they did before. Yeah.
What is too Western? You keep bringing it up, and Western. I think like now I'm like, okay, I thought I understood, and now I'm a bit confused. When you say too Western, is it a point where I don't even think it's loss of identity? Because when you mention someone like Normani, and I'm just like, when we say Western, are we talking about music? Are we talking clothes? Because I look at him just like it's a black girl, a dark-skinned black girl with black hair, black features. So what's the point where you just like, oh, I'm black, I'm not black anymore, and now I'm something else? It's the music. Like Normani definitely, she looks like a black girl, she dresses like a black girl. I sometimes do dress like Australians, or like UK people, they just dress a certain way. Like sometimes I do dress like I'm not even dress like I'm white. It's just like if you've hung out with certain people for so long, you start to adapt into the the environment that you're in. And I've spent my childhood listening to Calvin Harris and just like big house music, where it's like
what other artists? I don't know, like Paramore, just not Black artists, and you start making top lines that sound like that. Like, say if I'm making a song that sounds like, I don't know, like a Taylor Swift song, that's like Western. So that's what I'm saying, like it's too Western, then you're kind of existing in the sense where, yeah, Black people don't relate to it because it doesn't seem like it's coming from their own story, if that makes sense. So when I'm saying too Western, I mean that I'm finding it so hard to find references right now, but yeah, like the Taylor Swifts of the world, I think you understand what I mean.
Yeah, because I think I was just referring it also to how many sounds that we think belong to white people were actually made by Black people. Elvis Presley wasn't the first rock star. He didn't make rock music. If anything, it was stolen from a Black artist. Yeah. And I think that's what I was trying to see, like, are you talking about a particular sound that belongs to a particular people that we then find pleasure in and we adopt? So I think I was struggling with that, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. It's probably just like sometimes more just like watered down version of what it really should be. That's kind of, but I guess that's what you're saying, like Western music is kind of that, or like pop music at its like finest form is just like very watered down. It just kind of sometimes can lack a soul, if anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that makes sense.
Now, going into your catalog, 2015, possibly a great start for you, a great year, because you eventually found a single that was able to penetrate the Australian market and be able to reach high numbers when it comes to charting on some of the biggest Australian radio stations. And I think the song was called Mob. Tell us about the song and what made it special to resonate so hard for the Australian market and open up the doors that it did for you.
Yeah. When I was making like Mob, and there was a couple of songs that I made that same week, there was another track called Aha and Switch Lanes, like I made them on the same week. It was just at a time where it was about finding really cool production, and I feel like the fact that I was rapping on a triplet flow on a trap song and I was Australian, and there was just so many moving parts where it was just so unique, and the track, the production is so big. And at that time as well, it was just in fashion, but still ahead of its time in a way. And I think that's what just like works so well, because I remember when the song came out, it felt like the biggest reception I'd ever had. And, you know, like it gained a lot of attention from producers from America, the UK. And that was like the reason why I started touring, really, because everyone was like, oh my God, this song, what is it? This is so different. It's so, you know, innovative. And I think that's what set my branding as well. It was like I was meant to just sit in this world where it was like in the tastemakery world of like what's happening next before it happens kind of thing. So wait, I'm sorry, what was the question? I think I
No. Like
explained it.
Trying to get insight on your end, like what made the song so special, as you just said right now. Like you had made more than one record that week, and Mob was one of those songs that charted heavy on radio stations that I'm assuming you had been submitting for a very long time. But here's this one song that opens up these doors that you've been trying to open for the longest of time. Like what made it special? I think you answered it.
I think I answered it. Like to me, it felt like something I'd never heard before. And when we were shopping the songs to labels, they just were blown away because there wasn't anyone like that. And I personally believed that it was super unique as well. And I think it was just that energy that was like put into the songs that was kind of like resonating with it. Yeah, with people hearing it. Yeah.
Do you feel like you had to sacrifice anything or compromise on certain parts for you to own your sound and own your look?
I don't think so. When I first started touring, releasing music, it just felt like every opportunity that came was exciting, and it was like an opportunity for me to prove that I could do what I was hoping I could do, kind of thing. So I never felt like I was compromising. Like if anything, I felt like I was just taking so much on because I was really excited, and I was excited to see what was coming out of it. Maybe the only sacrifice was I was just spending less time with my family and friends, and I probably missed out on those years. 18 to when I was 20, I just wasn't really seeing my real friends that I grew up with. So it was kind of adjusting to that whole idea of being isolated, but also not really being in the same place. Like I was just traveling and seeing so much, but I wasn't with the same people all the time. I was almost like by myself.
Now, I'm sure there was a moment of excitement when some of the big names in music started reaching out to you because you've built this clout in Australia. Now music is allowing you to travel to spaces like Paris. You're now going to Berlin. You're going to various spaces to perform with names like Charlie XCX. How did it make you feel when they reached out and also performing the music to a totally different audience?
I felt blessed. Like I was just happy to be there. I remember many nights I was, when you're crying because you're just too excited, like you can't believe that it is what it is kind of thing. I think I just felt proud and I was happy and almost confused, because when you think about your journey, you never really know what worked and what didn't. You kind of like, and especially for me when I was taking so many songs on, I was trying to seize the day every time someone had contacted me. I always wondered, what if I didn't respond to that email? What if this and that? And that makes me very emotional because I did do it and I wasn't afraid. So if anything, I definitely really commend like the younger version of me, because it was, there was a lot going on, and it's so amazing to see, to think about the journey, honestly.
Do you have any particular performance that was tough, irrespective of what the reason could have been? Maybe sound was off that day, or you were not in the mood that day. But also besides that, do you have a collaboration that was tough? Be it someone that features on your song or you writing with someone?
Yeah.
And why?
I think the toughest collaboration was probably working with Martin Solveig when we made Do It Right, because I'd never been in the studio with someone so like
big.
Meticulously. He was so big, and then also he just had such like very tight attention to detail. Like I had to record my vocals probably like 15 times, and then even though we were done, he was like, he would call me probably 2 days later saying, come back, we need to re-record this again. And I'd never experienced that before, and I think that was such an important thing to experience, because songs aren't made in a day. Rome isn't built in a day. It's a long evolution, and that's how I learned. That's what I learned from working with him. I just learned that you have to be patient, and if you're working with someone like that who knows that this is the song, we're not there yet, but it might take 40 versions, that's like the definition of trusting the process, if anything. So that was a tricky collaboration, because I really had to learn my patience in that one. For shows, I had a show where I was meant to play South by Southwest. I did play South by Southwest, and I was having visa problems. And when I reached America, they initially let me in, but then after an hour they detained me and sent me home, saying my visa it didn't exist. And it was so strange. It was like so scary, because I had they've basically canceled my temporary visa, so I can never go to America on a temporary visa. I have to like do the 6-month process every time. But I went home. I didn't go home. I actually went to Melbourne for a day, and then I had them put the visa in my passport, and I went back to America. So this was like 36 hours. Went to America, got arrested basically, or detained, sent back, had the visa put in my passport. Then I went back to America, and they let me in because the visa was there. And after flying for how many hours? 12 times 3, like 36 hours. 36 hours, but like traveling for 60 hours or something, or like in transit. I went to Texas, and because it was showcasing, I missed 7 of my showcases, but made the last one. And that was meant to be a really big moment as well, because we were looking at signing to labels in that time, but it ultimately didn't matter because I came back a few months later. But that was probably a tough experience. That was the toughest experience for me. Yeah.
I think we need to breathe after that. I felt 6 hours. I genuinely felt 36 hours. Like, America from the outside has just always seemed difficult, but at the same time, they got this professional structure to it, where just the idea of having to go in and the process that comes with it seems like a nightmare. But I think for most artists, they would like to crack into that market. On your end, like, when you look at the American market, how does it look like for you as an artist?
Honestly, it looks like the biggest mountain to climb. Just because it's that whole idea of Americans don't want to hear someone from outside telling them their story. Do you know what I mean? Like, they'd rather their neighbor tell them, you know, the story. So I feel like for me, it's been about, you know, finding my identity, really owning it, and then you have to sell it to Americans who are like, who is this girl? Didn't even know there were Africans in Australia. And you have to do it repeatedly. It's like, it's not about one song, it's about, you know, it's about 20 songs, it's about an album. But like, once you do it, I think you're set. I think it's just getting that foot in the door is like the first hardest thing to do. But I think anything's possible if you really want it, honestly. So and I think with the last few months, it just feels like it's growing. So I think, yeah, I'm feeling optimistic about it, but it's definitely the biggest hill to climb, if anything.
What does your dream collaboration look like?
I would really love to work with Pharrell. I think he is so influential in pop music and rap music, and I feel like just watching him working with Timbaland, with Tyler, Creator, with, you know, Rihanna, everyone, that's like the holy grail for me. Just to be in the studio with Pharrell, even to be a fly on the wall, that would be amazing for me. Yeah
It's crazy, man. Like, you know, when one looks at your profile and looking at the names that you're putting in the forefront, the collaborations, and you've been named as one of the key instrumental artists in breathing new life into Australian hip hop, and the success you've had as an artist and a female artist in the Australian market. When it comes to calculating your value in currency, has that been a hard journey throughout the years? When someone reaches out to you and say, would like a quotation, is it the team that decides, or has it been you? Because when it comes to money, not a lot of artists love talking about that. And I feel like difficult process for some artists when other countries start reaching out and they want you to perform. How have you been able to navigate that?
It's definitely the team. I feel like I'm very modest, so I would literally give my time for free to anyone, because I just believe if someone wants to work with me, then it's just for the greater good. Like, I'll literally, if I'm committed to it, you don't have to pay me anything. But when you have a whole company and labels and everything, I think just based on chart success, and then the amount of traction you can give someone who otherwise wouldn't have had it, that's how they base their fees. Like, I never, if it's a collaboration, it's always coming from the label, because the label owns my voice technically. So they're saying, if you want to use TK on a song and you get on this radio, it'll equal this many streams, so basically pay us X amount of dollars, because that's how much you're using this voice that we own, which is like, it sucks, but that's kind of just the way it goes. In terms of shows, there's always just a set fee that I'll never go above, but it's go under. And firstly and foremost, it's for production. You don't want to play a show where you can't play or give your best foot forward. So there's always like a set number that I can't go if I want to have my full band there. And then you calculate it based on how many people are going to be there. So if there's 20,000 people, that's how the number goes up, kind of thing. So yeah.
Good money from music?
Yeah, I'm comfortable. I'm happy. I'm good. Yeah. I'm
We've read so many stories about how labels screw their artists over, how certain artists don't get paid because they don't read contracts, or they have a misunderstanding of what this is between two parties. Now, for you, someone that is so young, that is signed to a label, that trusts their team, do you have any advice for young people, even the older artists in the industry, just like how you know that you have a great team, and also red flags to look out for, like, this is not a good deal, abandon ship?
Well, I think firstly and foremost, you have to just ask yourself if you actually just like the people you're surrounding yourself with. Because it's not about this week, it's not about this year, it's about, are you going to enjoy speaking to them 10 years from now, and do you trust them with your life? That's kind of like, especially like right now, if I look at people and I'm like, do I trust you with my life? If the answer is no, then there's no point in engaging with, and the thing about money, I've learned that especially if the label gives you the money, and you don't have that money in your bank account, don't spend it. Only spend it when you've earned it back. And that's what I learned when I had my first advance. I just wasn't allowed to spend it until I had recouped and paid the label back, because then it meant that I'd made more than they gave me, and that was real money. Like, just like a bank, if they give you money that you don't have, it's still not really real, because it has to go back to them somehow, and if you can't afford it, then you'll be in a lot of trouble. So yeah, for me, it's just always been, do not spend above your means. And if you can't afford something 3 times, don't buy it. Like, don't buy jewelry, don't buy cars, chains, any of that. Just like live as if you were before, and save the money until you know that you have like, until it feels real, basically. And I feel like as your profile grows, your lifestyle will change, and you understand, you'll feel like you're comfortable enough to spend the money. If you get given like a big bag and you're like, oh my god, this is exciting, I need to use it now, it just probably means you're not ready to spend it. If you know what I mean. So yeah.
Look, before we let you go and we wrap up this interview, as much as COVID-19 has interrupted a whole lot of plans and some of the things you had in your pipeline for 2020, in May you signed a recording deal with a British label, 4AD, and that's the label that you dropped Shook under. And the fact that now we are aware of you, the song is playing this side on the radio. Signing with British label 4AD, like, what made you sign there? What kind of deal, if you don't mind sharing?
Right. So I signed it's a licensing deal. Basically, it's like a normal recording deal, but they pay me a certain amount of money, and then I have to deliver a project, and then both parties have to be happy with the product. And if they're happy, then obviously they'll push it as much as they want. So which is good, because it's less like a 360 deal where they take money, they can take things from each side. So it's kind of just like, I deliver, you pay me if it's good enough kind of thing, or I can keep working obviously to fulfill the requirements. The reason why I went with them is because they're a alternative label. They have a couple of really big artists, but these artists aren't conventional. And I feel like for me as a non-conventional artist, I need like a smaller team. It's a smaller label obviously, but they pay attention to detail of how to break artists that aren't like just straightforward. And that's what was exciting for me, because I feel like they're open-minded. So I might make a rap song that's obviously not like a Cardi B song or anything, but they understand that there's places where it can exist elsewhere, and they can build my profile in that sense. So that's what was exciting for me. I feel like I just need people that are like paying attention to my growth, and they really care. Like, I think 4AD really care, and it's that thing, if they're really excited, they're going to push it, and I feel like they've been really doing that for me, and I didn't have that before. And I also feel like I can message people from the team at any time. I didn't feel like I could do that being under a bigger label. So yeah, it's been really exciting. Like, I feel more at home, and I feel like I can be myself. because it's better to be weird in that kind of sense. They're looking for just things that are different, and that's what's exciting for me as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Can we expect an album, EP? What's next?
So I will drop another song this year, and then last year was Weird 3, so I'm gonna drop another EP. Probably early next year because it's nearly December and the calendar. Yeah, it's just hard to release at the end of the year. So I'll have an EP and then an album, and that's all coming next year. Yeah.
Great.
I am happy.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Excited. Elton, do you have the last question?
Nah, you gave me everything I needed.
Ooh.
Oh.
It's hard to make two women satisfied, so I think we're happy here. Huh? Thank you very much. Are you single? Are you in the market?
Yeah, I'm single.
Okay. All right. Your DMs are open. His DMs closed.
Oh my god.
I gotta get like a tabloid scoop or something.
Oh my god. Yeah. I'm married to the money.
It is.
All right, awesome stuff. Look, this was an amazing conversation. Great chat. Thank you very much, TK. I think like most South Africans are going to be introduced to the Australian market through you. You're in the forefront of something big, and there's so many young black girls that are looking at you in Australia and in different parts of the world where they just don't feel like they can become what they had envisioned in their head. And I think you're amazing, and a big shout out to you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for playing Shook, and thank you for the support. Honestly, it's so exciting.
Awesome.